It's both an historic and a quietly conventional moment at Cambridge. Lord Chris Smith, once Labour's Culture Secretary, one of the best Culture Secretaries in that we've had, somebody who actually understood what he was doing. And for the last decade, Master of Pembroke College, has been elected the 109th Chancellor of the University of Cambridge. He succeeds Lord Sainsbury and before him Prince Philip. The Chancellorship is largely ceremonial, but it carries immense symbolic weight in British public life and global academic diplomacy. Yet, while this may be a moment of celebration for Smith, it is tinged with a sense of what might have been, a shame one might say, about Sandi Toksvig. Chris Smith's career reads like a chronicle of earnest public service. Educated at Pembroke College, where he read English, Smith achieved a double first and later studied at Harvard on a Kennedy Scholarship. He made political history in 1984 when he became the first openly gay man in the House of Commons, a declaration made not in the confessional shadows but profoundly and in a public rally. I'm Chris Smith, I'm the Labour MP for Islington South and Finsbury, and I'm gay. In the hostile political climate of the 1980s, during the rising tide of the AIDS crisis and entrenched public prejudice, this was an act of real courage. Smith survived a diagnosis of HIV himself in an era when it was widely presumed to be a death sentence, and most of his friends with the virus died. He lived quietly and resiliently. As Culture Secretary under Tony Blair, Smith supported access to the arts and media and later chaired the Environment Agency and the Advertising Standards Authority. One could argue he is a safe pair of hands, moderate, clubbable, intelligent, deeply loyal to the university. The Chancellorship was contested by 10 candidates, including former BP boss Lord Brown, anti-Brexit campaigner Gina Miller, and economist Dr. Mohammed El Erian. Smith ultimately beat El Erian by just over 2,000 votes in the final round under the single transferable vote system, with more than 23,000 alumni casting ballots, many for the first time online. But the protest was not without controversy. Some candidates complained about poor communication from the university, murky campaign financing, and what looked like breaches of electoral protocol. Gina Miller, for example, raised concerns about the misuse of the Cambridge logo in campaign materials backing Smith. Toksvig tellingly spent not a single pound on her campaign, and herein lies the disappointment. Sandi Toksvig would have been the first female Chancellor of Cambridge in 800 years, but she was beaten not by Lord Brown, whose links to fossil fuels triggered an anyone but Brown campaign, but by Smith. That represents a victory of continuity over rupture. Toksvig was one of only 2 women in the race, a first-class graduate of Cambridge herself, a witty, erudite, outspoken broadcaster, and a public intellectual in her own right. Her election would have been genuinely radical, not because she is a woman, but because she is a dissenter by instinct, sceptical of pomp, suspicious of hierarchies, unafraid to be funny in serious spaces. And that Cambridge preferred Smith may tell us something about what the university wants in a chancellor, a dignified figurehead, sympathetic to liberal consensus, but not too disruptive, and perhaps something about what it fears: unpredictability, irreverence, and too much democratic sunlight. Chris Smith is in many ways a deeply worthy choice, a thoughtful public servant and a dedicated Cambridge alumnus. His life story is one of integrity, resilience, and quiet trailblazing. As the first openly gay Chancellor of the university, his election matters. But one cannot help thinking that the election of Sandi Toksvig, with her razor wit, moral seriousness, and instinct for justice, might have been a turning point. Instead, Cambridge chose history with a small h over change with a capital C. Lord Smith will be a steady Chancellor, and he breaks a mould in many ways already, but we are left wondering what a Toksvig Chancellorship might have dared to imagine.